Alright, get around, finger transformations. And what I want to discuss now or today is our chest movement patterns, shoulder complex, kind of what's happening and ways we can start to utilize it better. We're kind of usually using just certain traditional exercise or movement patterns. And what I've been exploring is kind of the different angles that we should be taking or the angles that we can do to kind of promote better movement patterns. So all too often for a lot of people, like push-ups might be a little bit too hard to run the whole range of motion. Mainly because the shoulder complex becomes so tight. It's not lack of strength by any means, it's just that the muscle tissues have become, or fibers have become so tight that it becomes hard to run a whole movement pattern. So what I'm going to do is use a bench. You can use a table too, and I'm going to kind of slightly round my body a little bit. And I want a slight bend at my elbows. My chest is slightly behind my hands, okay? Now, this is going to kind of force me to use my entire pec. All too often what happens is, we might maybe get up over it, which is fine. It's a different way to do it. But for right now, I'm going to kind of be behind. I'll show you a side angle in a moment. And I want to just kind of sink into this. So I should be allowing my chest to push my elbows and my arms out to wherever I'm comfortable going. And then I use my chest to push the humerus out. So that's kind of all too often what's happening is we're kind of closing off. And the chest gets so tight that it shortens the range of motion out between the distance between my sternum and my shoulder. Where I want to kind of keep my chest very similar to the glute. Not only does it push, but it should be pushing my humerus out the whole time. So I'm not trying to close off, I'm trying to keep that chest nice and open. Now I slowly push myself back up. Okay, I'm still trying to keep the same distance between here and here. Okay, I'm not trying to close off really close or quick. I'm holding nice and slow. Now some of you might just kind of find it comfortable just to sit up here. I did this in the beginning when I was kind of exploring the kind of best ways. I realized kind of like when you're cycling, you want to slightly be kind of pushing. So I'm using my chest when I cycle to push. Now if I'm like on the street when I'm going up a hill, I'm pulling. Now when I'm going downhill or just kind of flat, I'm pushing my body out. I'm kind of trying to round it ever so slightly. But I'm using my whole chest. So the chest comes all the way down to the sternum, to the clavicle area. So sometimes in the beginning, I'm just going to keep my slight bend in my elbows, pulling my shoulder blades apart, kind of hold it, keeping my core pulled in as best as I can. Now if you can or want to, you want to kind of start to come down. Pressure through the palms. Pressure always sits on the inside as best we can. As we start to kind of get more advanced, we can go to the outsides. It's going to target more triceps and different things, but we got to understand pressure dictates what's going to get fired as we go up, okay, through our movement pattern. So if I'm putting more pressure, like a lot of people do on their pinkies, that's going to promote more activation of the outer extremities, okay? So my triceps, the rear delt, things like that. If I want to get activation on my chest, front delt, I want to keep pressure on the inside palm of my hand. And now I slowly let myself down. And I push myself back up. Down. Moving the shoulder blades apart, so I notice my right tighter than my left. I'm going a little bit more to my right. I'm going to kind of just hold a little bit, try and let that pec lengthen this side so I can feel it. It's already starting to get too tight. It's pulling my shoulder a little bit. This is what I've been working on the most, is kind of getting my muscles back to their natural length. So when I exercise, and I'm also figuring out exercises that promote this. Because all too often what's happening with the chest is its job is to adduct the arm, adduct the arm and pull it in. And if we're doing a chest press or something like that, we got to understand it's trying to hold or stabilize out here. So we're going to go to the next movement pattern. We're going to go into a fly. So on my flies, I realize we want to stay low. A lot of people come up way too high. Okay. Now you're using your front delts. Your pec isn't able to fire. I got to keep it down by my sternum and coming back in. So, and again, really light on this. You don't have to go heavy. I'm even going to use a pair of 8s demonstrate here. Okay, core pulled in. I'm trying to keep my back flat. Okay, palms are important here in terms of where our position of our hands are. Okay, a lot of people tend to kind of do something like this. It changes the exercise altogether. So the weights are just kind of sitting straight down on me, kind of hugging a bear, if I will. And I'm going to slowly come out. And as I go, I'm going to get my wrists kind of flat. Elbows should be pointed down towards the floor. Okay, elbow position is huge. Elbow position dictates what muscles are going to fire, how they're going to fire, and when they're going to fire. Coming out. Slightly kind of pushing a little bit, if you will, too. So I'm not just kind of pulling in, I'm not letting the weights go dead. Keeping my activation. Letting it pull me apart. Coming back in. I'm going really slow on purpose and using really light weights to really kind of work my motion pattern. Keep those elbows up. And when I mean up, going up towards your head. You should feel a nice stretch. Go a little bit deeper. And coming back in. Again, I'm trying to push, is the best way I can explain it, my chest into my humerus to keep it elongated. I'm not trying to cut a corner. That's all too often what happens when we're exercising, we're cutting corners. I don't really realize it. It's stronger, and that's why a lot of us are doing it. When we're exercising, we want to kind of maximize what we're getting out of it. I'm going to show you guys again, sitting up here. Coming out. So even right now, pushing the arms out. Even when I come in, I'm still kind of trying to push. Push and pull. Certain fibers are pushing, certain higher fibers are pulling. And that's what, again, we're kind of not realizing all too often, is that these fibers are certainly doing certain things. The ones up here should be pushing out, the ones in here should be pulling down. This is why we kind of start to lose distance between our clavicle. And I had what we considered a stubborn chest for years because I was trying to pop out too much. It wasn't doing this motion, getting the whole pec to activate. I was getting too much lower pec, not enough kind of upper pec, which usually you could just do by running incline presses. But I also realized it was all my mechanics and how I was doing the movement pattern. So coming out, almost like throwing a hook punch. Okay. Now cable machines are really great for this stuff too. All right, I'm just demonstrating this free weight style. Now what I'm going to do is go into a press. I'm going to go one arm so I can focus on my chest activation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in nice and close and coming back out. About a 45. I'm not going in super tight. Okay, like a tricep press. I'm coming out like this, lining it up with my sternum and driving out. Almost like if you're martial arts, punching right to the sternum, right to the sternum, right to the sternum. So I'm going to go a little heavier on this one. Key thing important is how my wrist is here. Okay, so many people kind of lose this. I want to try and keep my back flat. I want to make it a little bit harder, a little more core. Bring my legs up into a 45-degree angle or 90 degree. And coming down, core tight, shoulder back. Okay. So mine, I can even see it myself. When I'm doing this, it wants to creep this way. Okay, this changes everything too. So I got to keep that shoulder, depressed. Coming up. So I might take a little bit wider angle, just because I'm noticing that deltoid starting to get tight already. I'm going to come out a little bit wider, a little bit more of a 45. Coming up and in. This is what happens for a lot of us, is our delts end up kind of doing too much work unintentionally, because our chest becomes too tight, and we're not realizing that these big muscles, if they're not doing their job, our secondaries have to start doing the work. Now if I want, I could be running a heavy weight, running a traditional press, but I really want to focus on getting just the pec to fire, not bringing my secondary, which is my front delt. And that's all going to happen too if you watch my other videos on percussion therapy. I'm loosening this tissue up. And now that I got my tissue kind of loose and I feel like my shoulder's sitting in the right spot too. Oh, that's one other last thing real quick. What happens a lot of times with the shoulders is people are up here. So we got to get down, and I got to get this shoulder kind of down and out. So in martial arts, we do this movement where we're coming under, and that's where our shoulders should kind of naturally sit, okay? Down and out, slightly. All too often, myself included, I was kind of pulling back, because we're always saying shoulders, chest, or shoulders back and tight, and not realizing, that our shoulders are not at the right angles. And it's really hard to get them at the right angles, is why a lot of people suffer neck pain, things like that. And once we start to understand how all the muscles kind of integrate and work, and it's, you know, yes, it's the traps, but it's so much more complex than that, then we can start to understand. So when I'm doing this chest press, I want that shoulder down here. Now I could do another one where I'm up here, but that's a totally different movement pattern. I want to keep it depressed and out. Again, just like a one-arm martial arts drive. Okay, so from punching straight up and in, trying to keep that angle. Weight should be flat, just like if I was standing up in the air. I'm coming straight in, not angled. Okay, parallel to the floor and up. Trying to make sure I'm pushing from the center of my chest out to the outside. Okay, I'm doing this with one. You can do it with two as well. Run my left side a little bit here. Try and flatten my back, keep my core tight. I want to make it harder. Bring it up to this angle. Head should be in neutral position. A lot of times we're all too quick to want to get heavier weight going. And while that is helpful in promoting strength and mass, it's not always helpful in promoting good movement patterns. Very often, if you take something, maybe even half the weight, and you run at about half the speed, it's going to be about 10 times as hard. We're not realizing we're bouncing, and that explosive is helpful for keeping the fascia moving, but we want to make sure that we're mixing up fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. A lot of this stuff I'm just doing slow in the beginning so people can understand my terminology and mechanics in terms of what we're doing. So next one we're going to do is we're going to come over. So I'm putting the weights together. And I'm coming over my body, pulling up, coming down, and back up. I should say, so when I'm coming back, pulling from the bottom of that chest, down, squeezing the dumbbells together, pushing up and in. All right, so this is to promote good range of motion. Also working the pecs and the lats in that position, triceps and the lats, my apologies. Inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. Inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I'm going to cycle back through those one more time. I'd say 3 times. So this is where you kind of want to take a breather. Maybe also you could mix in upper body. I'm just kind of staying on the chest today, just so kind of people understand kind of what you're doing. I could have ran it to all 3 or each exercise 3 times. Again, kind of no right or wrong when we're doing a lot of this. It just depends on kind of what the body's capable of doing. So if you're finding this too hard, then we might want to kind of mix in maybe an upper body, like a back exercise, maybe a row. Core tight, elbows going out, pushing the shoulders out, pulling the shoulder blades out. Again, if this is tough, just hang here. Okay? The more weight you kind of put forward, the harder it becomes. What you want to learn how to do is kind of get down in these uncomfortable positions, kind of hang out there. That's how you kind of really build your strength, is kind of pausing at these certain angles. So maybe I pause here, I hang out, and I go a little bit deeper, deeper. Come up a little bit. Okay, so that's going to start really kind of burning the chest, any muscle for that matter. Okay, a lot of times we're just too fast in our repetitions and kind of what we're doing. Well, that's fun and sometimes helpful too. You guys again gotta kind of work the bigger. So now maybe I might run this a little bit faster. Now I'm using momentum. I feel my right shoulder a little bit more tight. My left elbow, snap it a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go back to that fly. That's the other reason I'm staying light, because I'm running a variety of exercises in tandem to the same area. By targeting it differently, I'm capable or able to do this. And again, by keeping the weight light. And I just kind of hang out here. Again, I should be running a heavier weight for this, but it's for demonstration purposes. Big bear hug. Inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And maybe I hang out here. A little bit further, up a little bit, up a little bit, up a little bit. Up a little bit, down, 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 down. Now I can feel my chest burning. With a lightweight. I'll shake that angle again. Here, like big bear hug. Okay. Coming out, line it up with that sternum, pulling in. I hate to say pulling in sometimes now, because I realize again I want to be pushing. Okay, pushing my hands together. Even when I'm coming out, I'm still pulling. All too often, what happens is we just let go and activate, and let go and activate. And so we're only working our muscles through a portion of that range of motion. Very rarely are we getting it through the full. So we want to make sure we're staying active. Active. That's how we're going to kind of really build our strength and kind of stay in the muscles. Again, the muscles should just be doing what they're supposed to. What happens is if we're too tight, that they kind of shut down and something else takes over. So I'm going to go into press. Okay. You should be using 2, but come to the side. This is going to challenge your core a little bit more too if you're on one side versus the other. Just letting that weight kind of push me down, if you will. Working that scapular retraction. I could just keep the scapula there too, shorten the distance. Keep the scapula stable, drive. but normally, again, I should be doing 2. Just because, again, all the other exercises are 2 arm, especially going into the next exercise, which is 2 arm. But I recommend doing this 2 arm. I just was demonstrating with 1. My apologies. In, out, over, down. Come in, coming up, going back. Exhale, inhale, exhale. Here I'm pushing the dumbbells together, so I'm forcing my chest to have to activate because of the squeeze together. Even on the way down, pushing them together, pushing them together, pushing them together. I actually like this one for a combination of 2 movement patterns put together. You could run this one 2. I used to run a fly, come back. Should be no pain, no discomfort in the shoulders. If you are, let me know. We can talk about it. Find out what's really going on. That's the big thing to understand too. When we're exercising, shouldn't be pain or discomfort. I mean, again, there's fatigue from getting tired, and that's a whole different story. But you shouldn't feel a pinch, or you've got to watch if your shoulder's up, things like these things that we unintentionally don't really sometimes see or realize change or alter everything. And eventually will lead to us having a mechanical issue, breakdown sooner or later at some point, and lead to injury. So we need to figure out why, if we're having pain or discomfort, why can't I perform this movement pattern? Not just trying to stay away from it altogether, because then that's just kind of a recipe for setting something up later. I realized when I used to train earlier on, I'd kind of stay away from certain things because of people's fear and stuff like that. And I realized the following, that I needed to find out why they were having these issues in ways that I can fix it so that they can overcome the fear, so that way they're less likely to injure themselves. If we have a fear factor, we're more likely to injure ourselves at some point, some way, somehow. Not always in the way that we think it is, because again, we're kind of tense and holding on and not knowing what's going to happen. It's in those kind of quick instances, and that's what exercise and training should be for, is I know what happens in that split second. You're, just like in martial arts, you're training so that you don't have to think of kind of what you do, you just kind of naturally do it. And same thing with weight training and stuff like that. But angles, form is huge. It's the biggest thing. And people who unfortunately don't kind of think that, I'm sorry, but it is. You may be 20, 30 now and have no issues, but as you kind of get older, they start to happen. Now, some people are lucky, in my opinion, but the people that are especially hypermobile, such as me, you guys have to be even more vigilant and more careful of kind of what's happening throughout your life and how you exercise and how you move. So hopefully you found this video helpful with chest movement patterns, and we'll continue on with some more. Thank you.